The tools that you're going to need for watercolor are your watercolor pans, your flat and round paintbrush. You should have one tube of watercolor. It's the small tube of paint. It actually does say watercolor on it. Cup of water, sketchbook, paper towel, and you will need some salt. The bigger the salt, the better, but you can use regular table salt. You will not need a lot of it. So let's talk about tool maintenance. So you're going to need to clean these paintbrushes after every time you use them. So at the end of class, these paintbrushes need to get cleaned. And the way that you clean them is actually really easy. It's like how you shampoo your hair. So you first get the paintbrush really wet. And I like to kind of paint my hand while I am rinsing the paintbrush. Then I put some soap in my hand and I'll swirl the paintbrush gently into that soap until it creates a good foam. Then I'll rinse it out again by painting into my hand. Then you know I wash my hands. This paintbrush, when it's still wet, you'll be able to check it against a paper towel by pushing it into the paper towel to see if it's clean. Any color that remains on the paper towel means that your paintbrush is not clean and will need to be cleaned again. You can do the same thing with a round brush. The other thing that you need to make sure is neat is your watercolor palette. You do not want your watercolor palette to look like mine when it comes back. Something that you can do to clean your watercolor palette off is just get a paper towel, just a little bit wet, and then swipe the watercolor pan, and you can see how that has cleaned the watercolor pan off. That way you can clean off any of those colors that might have gotten another color mixed onto them. But then before you start, get yourself a new paper towel. You don't want to use this to wipe up or lift any of your paint off of your surface. Last thing that you need to concern yourself with is just making sure that your space is set up and you have your page done. So we have a space for the watercolor from the tube, which is going to be wet paint on a dry surface, and we're using one color. And then paint from the pans, which is wet paint on a dry surface with two colors. A graded wash, wet on wet with one color, wet on wet with two colors, a glaze, dry brush, adding salt, lifting, a variegated wash, and then at the very bottom, a painted sphere. Get that set up, get yourself ready, and then we'll do some painting.